Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Nick Cage Fight Podcast. A very special episode because this film is one of the Nick Cage movies that put it into my head to want to do a podcast about Nick Cage's filmography. That film being The Wicker Man. Super excited to talk about this. Just the right kind of trash for me personally. Me being one of your hosts, Josh, joined as always by Rich and Ryan. How are we doing?
I dedicate this episode to Johnny Ramone.
That confused me so bad, and
it's like the most simple fucking thing. That Johnny Ramone showed Nick Cage the original Wicker Man. That's all it is.
And Cage had the pull to get the film dedicated to him.
Yeah, that might have been
awesome.
his like the writer for his contract or some shit.
That's the best explanation to that.
But as always, fuck Joey Ramone. Not Joey. Yeah, Johnny Ramone. Johnny Ramone. Fuck Johnny Ramone.
Yeah, Johnny's the one that you can say fuck about.
I
will hear no bad talk about Tommy Ramone, though. That man was a saint.
The funniest thing about Johnny Ramone is that when they were inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, he said, "I dedicate this to like our ever loving president George W. Bush."
Oh my god,
it's so funny.
It's almost as good as the fucking dedication at the end of Rambo 3 to the proud Mujahideen fighters of Afghanistan.
Wait. Wasn't that not real?
The Rambo one? No,
yeah.
It was 100% real.
Really?
I have a fucking VHS of Rambo 3 that has that at the back of
it. That's so good.
Yeah.
This movie's amazing. Dedicated to 9/11.
I saw that for so many years, and I think somebody mentioned it being fake, and I was like, that can't possibly.
No, it's that people think it's fake because they cut it out of every future release of the movie. Like the old VHS releases, or like if you watched it on USA back in the day, it was still on there.
All right. So we are here today to talk about The Wicker Man. The 2006 Wicker Man. This is not the original version.
Not the 1973 masterpiece, The Wicker Man. The 2006 masterpiece.
Correct. It is a PG-13 film, but I don't recommend necessarily watching it with 13-year-olds.
I do. I thought it seemed like that would be a cool hang.
If they're cool, all right. Like,
no, I think even if they're shitty, I would have a good time watching them laugh at this movie.
So it clocks in at a very smooth hour and 42 minutes, which is the perfect amount of time for it.
Which surprised me, that I thought I was going to be in for a 2-hour movie, and I wasn't. And this movie really got there in the time it was given.
Oh, no. Yeah, this was tight. There's very little fat on this movie. I will speak about the only part that I think they could have skipped.
I mean, like, for me, it's there's like an amount of friction between the intention of the movie and the execution of the movie. But yeah, it got there for me, not for the filmmaker's intended purposes, though.
Yeah. I will say, I think a lot of our enjoyment of this is bypassing intention here.
Yeah, no, the comedy for me is me versus this movie.
And this movie is Nick Cage versus women.
Yes. Gotta say, this was one of the more ham-fisted matriarchy horror movies I've seen.
It really is. This movie is like, you know what? Fuck subtlety.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start with the director, Neil LaBute. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, probably.
LaBuddy.
No, there would be a second T in there, I think, right?
Yeah.
So Neil also directed In the Company of Men, Nurse Betty, The Shape of Things, House of Darkness. Neil is also the primary writer, or the only real writer of this film. And that's actually a trend for his CV, so far as I can tell. He also wrote In the Company of Men. He wrote American Gigolo, or at least some of the episodes, the John Bernthal prestige TV show. I believe that's what it is. You can fact check me on that.
This House of Darkness looks kind of interesting. It's got a Justin Long.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. It's good enough for me, honestly.
Yeah, and he wrote and I think directed both Some Velvet Morning and Your Friends and Neighbors. I don't know why I did this to myself. I have different credits for writing and directing and wasn't just like, just mash them all together.
They just mash it all together.
So Anthony Schaefer gets a writing credit on this for writing the screenplay for the 1973 version. He also wrote Death on the Nile, Absolution, Appointment with
Which
Death.
Death on the Nile? They've made that like 4 or 5 times. Is it the Kenneth Branagh one?
I don't know. I'm assuming it was sometime in the 70s, whichever one came out
it's
then.
the old Poirot one from the
they came out
BBC joint.
Came out in 1978.
Okay,
There you go.
Yeah, that's the BBC Poirot. Because I really like the Kenneth Branagh ones. I'm excited to see Haunting in Venice this month.
There you go. From there, we can move on to the cast. This is actually a really short housekeeping for me because I just called out the big names and to brace our audience and also set the hook for episode 2. There are 2 very important cameos that we'll get to that we're not mentioning in housekeeping. So if you want to fucking find out, you're gonna have to tune back in for
You're gonna have to fuck around.
I promise you, if you haven't seen this movie, you will not be able to guess who is going to show up. I promise you.
Especially since they're not listed on the fucking IMDb front page.
100%.
You gotta dig to find them.
And I think the one you're thinking of, by the way, was not in this movie because you said their name, and I'm just like, that wasn't him. And I looked it up, and I'm just like, he's not credited in this movie.
I assure you, I am 100% on the identity of those last
I think you're thinking of a
individuals.
different guy with that same last name. I think it's that dude's son that you're thinking of.
Are you talking to me or Rich about this one?
I'm talking to Rich about this one.
Okay.
Because like I was gonna say, I am very confident.
We will get there when we get there.
Yeah. No, and just to be perfectly clear, it is so out of a left field of a thing that this being one of my favorite movies, every time I watch it, I'm like, what the fuck when I get to that scene? Oh, like a doddering individual in a nursing home. I am shocked every time my family shows up to see me. Like, who are these people? So, moving on to cast. First up, as always, Nick Cage plays Edward Malice. Is that how he pronounces it in the film? He says his last name once. And I think he pronounces it Malice, but Malus.
And you would
maybe
know
Malus.
Might be. I can't.
I got nothing.
Yeah, you would know Nick Cage from Josh's favorite movie, Next, which somehow has 6.2 stars on IMDb.
I have to make more Smurf accounts.
Fucking Wicker Man. Wicker Man's 3.8. Do these people not have fun?
Criminal. Whoever gave that a single star needs their account banned.
Like, yeah, it's a bad movie, but bad movies can be a good time.
Yeah,
how is Grand Isle? How does that have more stars than Jiu-Jitsu?
Jiu-Jitsu was an absurdly bad movie.
Grand Isle was worse.
Grand Isle was horny.
Yeah.
Grand Isle was super horny. That's an easy 2.5 stars right there.
Yeah.
To pad the final count.
And Jiu-Jitsu completely squandered Tony Jaa. Like, that's enough to tank that score for me.
All right, fine.
Jiu-Jitsu was hilariously bad. I was so excited when it came out and got it as soon as it came out. And I was like, this is hot dog shit. Yes. So we also have Ellen Bernstein as Sister Summersisle, who you've definitely seen her in a bunch of things, even if you don't know her name. She was in Requiem for a Dream, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, The Exorcist, Pieces of a Woman, Interstellar, The Fountain. And just I think this is another one where she's been like in every TV show ever made, but she's been in a lot of shit.
Yeah.
We got Lily Sobieski as Sister Honey, who was in Never Been Kissed, 88 Minutes, Joyrides, Acts of Violence, Public Enemies, that Johnny Depp movie, if I'm remembering correctly.
And I'll shout out the worst movie on her filmography, In the Name of the King, A Dungeon Siege Tale. That movie's awful.
I saw that title and almost threw it in just because of how wordy it was.
It stars Jason Statham, Ray Liotta, fucking Ron Perlman, and it's directed by my least favorite director of all time, Uwe Boll.
Oh shit. Okay, I was gonna say with that
Okay,
cast
yeah.
list, it was like you're trying to tell me this is a bad movie. Also, although I do need to say this right now, the official podcast stance is not to criticize Yui Boll, especially because I watched him beat the shit out of somebody who said he had shitty movies in a boxing ring.
Yeah, I don't
Because
care if he punches me. His movies suck shit.
Wait,
he
didn't
will
Yui
punch you.
Boll
He
threaten
will punch you.
Yeah,
Look
didn't
it
he
up.
threaten Sean Baby?
I don't know. I think Sean Baby would be able to destroy him in the ring. I just know whatever other critic he called out, and Yui Boll was like, "Fucking fight me," and the guy's like, "All right." And Boll kicked the
Yeah, he did
shit
kick the
out of this
shit out
Yeah,
of
man.
him.
I think it was after
Yeah,
this.
because Yui Boll spent most
Yui Boll like tried to call out Sean Baby, and Sean Baby was like, "Yeah, absolutely, I would love to do that," and then nothing happened.
Okay, that makes sense because, like I said, Sean Baby would probably beat the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Well,
See,
yeah,
my
he's been
theory
trained like
is-
Brazilian jiu-jitsu and shit.
Yeah. My theory is that Yui Boll, instead of honing his filmmaking abilities, just got slightly better at punching.
That is a solid move as a director. Is like, instead of making good movies, I will focus on being able to physically dominate my critics.
Yeah. Shit, fucking, I forgot Matthew Lillard was in that. That movie's awful.
God damn. The fact that video game movies as a genre survived despite Bowl is an amazing feat.
The
It
fact that
really
they kept
is.
giving them to him. He directed like fucking 6 or 7 of those fuckers.
I think he was beating up other people who were trying to put in bids. That's the only thing I can think of.
Of course, because the only people that want to make video game movies are nerds.
Yeah,
It's real
this
easy
is very
punching.
true. So next up, we have Kate Behan as Sister Willow Woodward, who's in Flight Plan, Matrix Revolutions, Chopper. Couldn't find her in much else, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of people in this that like don't have an extensive filmography.
I mean, she's got a lot of credits. It's just nothing really that interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think her role in Matrix Revolutions was coat check girl.
There you go.
Yeah, but there's a lot of blank Wikipedia articles for a lot of the people.
There you go.
She was in one episode of Farscape, so she's got that going for her.
Oh, there you go. Which is kind of odd because I pegged her as like she could have been in like any 90s movie.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I was surprised to find that I didn't know Molly Parker from more. Like, I knew her from like 3 things. I saw her when she pops up in this movie. I'm like, where do I know you from?
We'll get to Molly Parker because I like Molly Parker from the things I've seen her in, which is incredibly specific and specific to me. So first we though have to take a detour to talk about Frances Conroy as Dr. T.H. Moss. She's been in a number of things, including Joker, which won the coveted French Golden Lion Award, which means the dude who directed the Hangover movies has won a coveted French Golden Lion Award.
I mean, listen,
on that film, nerds.
In fairness, the first Hangover movie still fucks. The second 2, not so much.
So she was in Joker. She I think she played the mom in Joker.
Yeah, she did.
Okay.
She was in The Aviator, Six Souls, Power of the Dog, which, by the way, is apparently going to turn into Lost Media, if I'm not mistaken, because it was like a Netflix original. So unless the Criterion Collection picks it up, it's going to disappear from the face of the earth at some point.
Yeah.
This is a big problem, by the way. Everybody, all those nerds who are mad at Martin Scorsese over his comments about Marvel movies, has done so much to try and stop media from disappearing, which is going to become a real concern in the next 10 years.
And also, this is one of the things that they're striking about.
Yeah, like 100%. We don't usually pull out I'm sorry. We do probably usually pull out a soapbox on this podcast, but I do want to fucking call
out a few soapboxes,
like per episode.
Yeah. I stopped myself as soon as that came to my mind. But no, like Lost Media is going to be a thing, whether you liked or didn't like Power of the Dog. I enjoyed it. You know, it is one of those things that's going to end up on the bubble because it was, produced by a streaming service and there's no real physical media to be had. And Scorsese has dedicated a lot of time and money to keeping shit like that from happening. Anyway.
Yeah, and also, if you don't like the strike, don't be a nerd, you nerd.
Yeah. She was also in Made in Manhattan. Had to throw that in there.
I do like Made in
No, you
Manhattan.
Scent
up,
of a
I liked
Woman.
it.
And she was also in American Horror Story, which I'm assuming some of our younger listeners would know her from primarily.
What do you mean, younger listeners? I've never heard anyone under 50 talk about that show, except for like a couple people my age who are like, it's okay, it's all right, it's fine.
What fucking 50-year-olds are you hanging out with? Because American Horror Story is done in a style that's too young for me as far as media is concerned. I get what they're going for, but I lose interest very quickly into the season.
It's all like my mom's friends and shit who are
really
dead, like completely dead-assed into it. It's because it's shot like a fucking soap opera is what it is.
That does make sense. Maybe that's why it's losing me. I pinned it on my own age, but maybe it's just a completely different style.
I don't think it. I don't think it's intended to veer young. I think it is actually like supposed to be a horror soap opera, and that's why it appeals to that specific demographic.
Yeah, and it also has people that were that are like 15 years past their peak popularity. Like, did you see who's gonna be on the newest one?
Nah, I don't
fucking
know.
Kim Kardashian.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, but they had Lady Gaga in one of them, and like the younger Farmiga was in the first season and some of the subsequent seasons.
Lady Gaga is still very popular, but her peak popularity was like 2010.
Yeah.
But that's not to say she still is not very popular.
Are you telling me Lady Gaga is no longer popular?
That is not what I'm saying. That is literally what I am not saying.
I will hear no slander on the Lady Gaga.
But I'm saying that her peak was probably like 2010, 2011.
Okay. All right. That's fair. Now we come to Molly Parker as Sister Rose and another unnamed character, but we'll get to that when we get to that very weird part of the movie. But she was in Deadwood and the Deadwood movie. She was in a very enjoyable film that I don't think was super widely watched that I liked called Small Crimes. She was in the American remake of House of Cards. She was in The Road, the Cormac McCarthy film adaptation with Viggo Mortensen.
Yeah.
She was in Party Down for an episode, and I will always call out
I did
Down.
Remember her in Party Down. That was like one of the two things I was like,
yeah,
you.
I only remembered her from Deadwood, to be perfectly honest. I'm like, it's from Deadwood.
And she was in Wonderland. But yeah, no, I every time she shows up, I'm like, I'm interested.
Yeah, I like her.
And then last up, I have Diane Delano as Sister Beach, who is in Miracle Mile. Lady Killers, which I put in here specifically because of Rich's image of the DVDs. Lady Killers happened to be next to Wicker Man.
Lady Killers is a pretty good remake of a like 1950s movie. It's a Coen Brothers joint.
It is a Coen Brothers joint. She was in Jeepers Creepers 2. Let's not talk about the director of those films.
Yeah, let's really not.
She was in A Mighty Wind, and she's also been in almost every television show that's ever been made. That's the easiest way to cover the rest of her CV.
She was in one episode of Married with Children, which is weirdly fortuitous because I found this at a comic book shop today.
That's awesome. But yeah, and that is going to wrap housekeeping. Unless somebody wants to yell at me about anybody but those two that we're going to get to in episode 2.
No, but it would probably behoove me to mention that I just showed a copy of Married with Children, the comic book, issue 7, because that's not good radio for me not to identify what I just showed you.
Look, we are supposed to stand as a lesson to others in what is not good radio, but it is good to lay out. See, when we're finished this entire series, what we're going to do is paywall the whole thing and offer it as like a teaching course. $100 to unlock the whole catalog, and you're like, here are examples of what not to do for good radio. But yeah, you'll have to tell me how that comic is because I'm interested.
They're kind of fun. I flipped through it. The art's interesting. It's like kind of looks like Jack Davis Mad Magazine art a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of got that from the cover. Oh, wait. Before we move on, I forgot one incredibly important entry for housekeeping, and that is advertisements. So listen to these.
Man, advertisements sure do have a lot of credits. Seems
Yeah.
like they're in every movie.
Yep. Yes, they do. Yes, they are.
It was really weird in A New Hope when Han Solo was drinking Pepsi.
Every time we do this bit, I think of the Wayne's World bit.
I know.
We mentioned that pretty frequently, yeah.
I can't help it. Every
lit-
fucking time we do this, I just picture fucking Dana Carvey in a Pepsi hat going, "It's so sad when people sell out."
No, he's fucking completely
In a
decked out toe to
tracksuit.
tip from
I know.
fucking Reebok.
Well, yeah. He's got the Reebok sneaker. I thought it was an Adidas tracksuit, and he's got like
No,
he's
it's the
drinking the
Reebok
Pepsi.
because it's the red, white, and blue, not the white and black.
There you go. Okay, so now we can jump into the plot of the film, which starts off in such a weird way on my like 100th watch of it, right? Because we're in a diner where a waitress is dealing with a couple of guests. There's one clear local, and then there's one other guy at the counter smoking in the diner, which is just reminding me of the glory days of America.
Back before the liberals took it over.
Yeah. Could you imagine if we had the woke discourse that everybody likes to engage in when they ban smoking indoors? Which, by the way, I will stand by. That is a phenomenal idea that they did. I'm very glad that people did.
I thought you were saying if we, like the three of us, engaged in it, because it probably would spike our listenership.
No, I'm saying the current conservative discourse. Like if that was a thing, if communication technology was at where it is now when they banned smoking indoors.
Yeah, that would have been wild. You would have had Rush Limbaugh just go into like a Toys R Us and light up a cigar.
Yeah, fucking Alex Jones would just be going into like fancy restaurants and lighting a cigar and filming himself being kicked out. It would be amazing.
They would have done it not just in restaurants, but I'm telling you, like they would have gone into, like I just said toys, but like they would have gone into like a baby store and just lit a cigarette.
I got a better one for you. They would have done it on a plane.
Oh, 100%.
Which would have been the funniest grounding and being tased by federal marshals we've ever seen ever.
I was about to say, because this happened in a post 9/11 world, they would have been absolutely fucked by air marshals.
Oh yeah. It was so like that's the thing. If it happened with the modern context, it would have been some like lower tier person like Crowder or something like that who tried it and then just disappeared because
Crowder would have got his shit pushed in.
Yeah.
I mean, him just on video yelling at his wife got him canceled, which is very weird that conservatives decided to cancel him over that.
I got an answer on the pronunciation of his last name. Apparently, malice meant to rhyme with phallus.
Oh.
That's the hands for hands.
It works so well for me.
It does.
Like because at my core, and again, I was thinking about this the other day. It was like there's a bunch of people who do like try and do deep analyses of films from multiple perspectives, storytelling, cinematography, so on and so forth. And we're just a bunch of dumb dudes telling you our favorite parts of movies. And that's why this movie ranks among my favorites, because
oh my god, when they dumped the bees on his head, the part was so cool. Part was so cool. Let's talk about that for 25 minutes.
The deepest part of this is that malice is supposed to rhyme with phallus, and it went completely over my head.
It's real good.
It's beautiful. So anyway, back to the dumb start. So one of the only remaining guy at this diner counter who again is smoking a cigarette, which caused this digression, is a police officer of some sort. And the waitress talks to him briefly and is like, "Oh, what is your?" I think she explicitly calls him his partner, and we get to see Nick Cage browsing, of all things, in this diner, like a book rack or cassette tape rack. I think it's a book rack.
I think it was a book rack too, but it seemed to be completely inundated with self-help bullshit.
Which, this is one of my favorite bits. that they come back to one other time in the film. It's like the book is titled Everything is Okay. Perfect.
Yes.
No notes. So she refers to him as the other cop's partner, and then we cut to a montage of Cage as a motorcycle cop by himself pulling over like just a bunch of people. Is like, I pulled you over. And my favorite is the opening one. Is like, I pulled you over, and the guy's like, "Yep." That's it.
Yeah,
That's all
you
we get
never
from that
admit
guy.
to that. God.
It's so simple. Um,
Why don't you just suck his dick next? Jeez.
I got not good literacy as far as the legal system. But I just love that it's a literal 2-second clip. I pulled you over. Yep.
Yep.
Listen,
He's gonna wanna fuck.
the first 15 minutes of this movie is completely unnecessary.
So maybe not. I'm not saying it does a good job of what it's setting out to do, but it does try and do something. So let's get into that.
Okay.
At the tail end of this montage, we have a station wagon with like a bunch of shit piled on the top and like bungee corded around. And out the back window of this station wagon flies like a baby doll. And maybe the most badass thing that the character of Edward does is scoop the baby doll off the road while still riding the motorcycle.
Yeah.
Which is insane. Because by the way, if he wiped out and like broke his leg and was on permanent disability, that town would be paying the bill for that for the rest of his life.
But they
wanted to do something stupid.
They wanted the shot from Terminator 2 where Arnie grabs John Carter.
Fair.
Or the shot from Rising Arizona.
Or the shot from Raising Arizona. Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair.
That's the first thing I thought of was him grabbing the baby.
Nah, I see a motorcycle cop. I immediately think Terminator 2.
I mean, fair.
So, Edward Malice pulls over the station wagon and returns the girl's doll. And this sets the trend for a majority of this movie, which is Nick Cage's character is speaking to people and they're talking back to him in riddles, and he continues to act like nothing is weird about this. He has a semi-charming interaction with the little girl. He's like, "Why'd you do this?" And she's like, "I was bored." And he's like, "Yeah, I've been there, but maybe you shouldn't, like, maybe you should treat the stuff that you own well. That way you're safe and everybody else is safe." It was like classic cop speech, first of all. So he hands it back to her, and then she whips it out into the middle of the road again. And so he's like, "I'll go get it." And so he goes and he picks up the doll and looks back at the station wagon, and the station wagon gets pancaked by a semi-truck.
Yeah.
Like fucking out of nowhere. No sound cue, no idea this thing is coming, like 80 miles an hour and onto the shoulder of the road and just obliterates this vehicle.
It was so funny.
It's shocking. I'll tell you that.
Also, a cop being a dickhead about the rules just got 2 people killed.
Yep.
Let's not gloss over that.
So also funny enough, now that you mention it, like him being a stickler for trying to help in circumstances that would probably be fine without his intervention getting people killed is kind of the entire plot of this film.
Yeah.
So anyway, the car bursts into flames, and Edward tries to break in the back window to save the young girl. But unfortunately, the car blows up before he can, and he is thrown clear by the blast. And then we get the title card, the Wicker Man.
In the same font as the 1973 version.
There you go. I mean, you gotta give a shout out to the original.
Yeah, there's a few little ones, like the fact that there's a maypole somewhere on that island. I remember seeing.
Yeah, it's there for
like
3
fucking
seconds.
It. Yeah, it's exactly. you see it like over his shoulder when he's in the school.
We cut from here to Edward, who's in his house and taking pills. And I didn't call out every flashback scene, but he's having some trouble with that whole station wagon explosion. a fellow police officer shows up, like knocks on the window. He lets her in, and she delivers some get well soon letters that have come into the station for him. The actress, I'm not sure who actually played this character, does an awkward moment very well in this scene that stood out to me. But she's like, yeah, are you coming back to work? And he's like, I'm not ready for that. I am severely traumatized. And she's like, ooh.
Ugh, awkward.
But the lady does tell, and this never pans out, and it's very odd. But she explains that the car apparently wasn't even registered. The bodies haven't been recovered, which doesn't make any fucking sense. And he's like, yeah, well, I just want to figure out what happened. It might lead to some closure. And she's like, that's probably never happening. You might never know. It's like, how is that fucking possible? What are you talking about? It's like, is this police department that incompetent? They're like, people die in a car accident, and the newspaper's just like, some people died in a car accident. We might never know who. Yeah, I've never seen anything like that personally. The movie doesn't care though. So a little later, Ed is reading through the letters, and one letter catches his eye, and it's not hard to figure out why. It's handwritten in perfect calligraphy on like rough homemade parchment looking shit. Like this letter and envelope would cost you at least $20 at the cheapest place you could find it right now. Just saying. So the letter is apparently from an ex of his, and she explains that she lives on this weird island in Puget Sound, I believe, and says that her daughter has gone missing, and the locals won't help her, and there's no way her daughter could have left the island, and she desperately needs his help. So Edward goes to the police station to ask if anybody saw this letter come in. There's no postage on it. It must have been hand delivered. And I do gotta say, his cop buddy, I think his name is Pete, is one of the only characters that acts logically throughout the course of the film. He's like, this is fucking crazy. You're gonna ignore this, right? And Ed's like, no, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna follow this to my own doom. And Pete's like, that's ridiculous. Ignore it or call her. And he's like, yeah, she lives on an island. There's no cell service, so there's that. And so he's like, promise me, like, you won't go do this. And it's like, yeah, I probably won't. And then the next scene is, of course, Ed on a boat trying to get to Summer's Isle.
There is something I got to bring up. Apparently, they called it Summer's Isle instead of just Summer Isle because they thought it would be easier for Americans to pronounce during the production of the movie.
Really?
Yeah.
There's no difference in how easy or hard those two are to pronounce.
There isn't.
That's crazy.
I don't understand.
So Ed is like still hallucinating due to psychological trauma he suffered from witnessing this accident. He legitimately sees like a little girl standing at the railing of this ferry that looks like she might look slightly similar to the girl in the photograph in the letter that he was sent. And he sees her get hit by a semi or a train or something out of nowhere on a boat. It's a boat. Very jarring scene. But every time
I rolled it back like 3 times, I couldn't stop laughing.
Every time he has a hallucination like this, I like that he takes pills. So he's taking pills because he's a broken man with a haunted past. So he gets off the ferry and he finds a pilot, like a seaplane pilot, who apparently makes deliveries to this island. And it's one of the only ways to get there. And Edward's like, hey, take me. And the guy's like, no, I don't want to lose my contract. And Edward's like, okay, well, what if I give you $100? And the guy's like, all right. It's just, that's ridiculous, right?
And the way he puts it is very funny. He's like, well, says my friend Ulysses and his brother Grant.
Yeah, it was my you take me and my friends. So my friend Grant and his twin brother Ulysses. So yeah, so the guy's like, all right, fine. And for $100 risks like an ongoing contract where he makes daily fucking deliveries to. And so he drops Edward off, and Ed starts taking this like dirt path and runs very quickly into a group of locals. It's like two older looking women and a couple of dudes literally carrying between them a burlap sack that is dripping blood. We never get to see what's in the sack. Edward floats the idea that it's a shark. He's eventually invited to look into the sack, but they just jump scare him with it by like jiggling it at him when he goes to look in. And it's nothing else ever comes of it, which I do find to be funny. But we get into cementing the theme of Edward asking reasonable, straightforward questions and people talking like they're goddamn D&D characters, and him just trying to be polite about it. It starts here.
No.
Everyone talks like a Fallout NPC.
It's not that. No, it's way fucking worse. They all talk like this is Ren Fair and they refuse to break character.
Yeah. Well, isn't that what I said? A D&D character?
D&D character. No. Because a D&D character is not cognizant of the world outside of Dungeons and Dragons. These people know what fucking a TV is. They just refuse to acknowledge slang. Like he says, "Can you swing that?" And she's like, "Swing? Is that a newfangled slang term?
Is that a city term?
A city term from the mainland?"
All right. I'll correct my previous statement. They talk like they're a goddamn D&D player.
Yes, D&D player.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
So sorry. So he does get some information out of him. They do agree that his ex, that they refer to as Sister Willow, does live on the island. And Ed treks on to the local tavern, which, by the way, why don't we have taverns anymore? When did that go out?
I don't know.
Like bed and breakfasts, they don't count. I want a place
Yeah, they don't count.
with a liquor license and like 10 rooms for rent. That's what I want. Why don't we have those?
I don't know.
I gotta look up a modern one because I want a vacation to a town that has that. I want to stay in a tavern, or maybe open one. It probably isn't a viable business.
That's
Maybe
probably
why
not a
they're
viable business.
So he does try to get a room from the generally surly tavern keep, and Willow shows up and actually helps him out. He does secure a room, and he orders a cup of mead, which, by the way, I drank mead the entire time I was watching it and taking my notes. I thought that
which
was
one you
appropriate.
grab? I always grab Carol's because it's cheap.
I don't know the names off the top of my head. A buddy of mine gave me 2 bottles. He's like, a friend gave me these 2 bottles of mead, and he's like, I don't care for mead.
I
like,
really care for mead.
Yeah.
Mead's good.
It's right about the time of year where I should
honey
get
liquor.
it's honey liquor. Well, honey wine because of the it's not distilled, it's fermented.
Yeah,
it's honey alcohol.
Honey alcohol.
And every time I drink mead, I think of one of my other favorite, not super great, not widely watched movies, The 13th Warrior.
Oh, I love
Ooh.
The 13th Warrior. That movie's so good.
Do you remember the scene that makes me think?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not allowed to drink fermented fruit or barley or anything like that. And he's like, this is made out of honey. He was like, oh, okay, I can get fucking drunk on that. My religion didn't say shit
That's
about
like
that.
shortly before he learns how to speak Nordic by just listening real good, right?
It's like maybe like a third of the way through the movie, because the learning how to speak Nordic in 5 minutes around a campfire is very early in the movie.
It's very fucking funny.
And when that
too.
happened, even as like, I think I saw that movie when I was like 13 or 14.
Yeah,
I was
same.
like, oh shit, hell yeah. This movie doesn't give an F about nothing.
Yeah.
And it stuck with that the entire way through the runtime.
It's so good.
So he orders his cup of mead, he drinks it. Also, by the way, a brief aside, I fucking love the steins they have in this place. It's like a pewter outside but has a glass inset bottom.
I've got one of those.
I'm sure it was done primarily for the shot so you can see him actively drinking it, but that's cool
like
ass
a traditional cup style.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I
I
got
did
one
like how it
floating
looked.
around with I've got like a whole shelf that's all like steins and like, but interesting things I can drink beer or mead out of.
Gotcha. Do you have a horn with a
I,
stand?
I've got a horn. I've got, it doesn't have a stand. It's got a shoulder strap so I can wear it to Ren Fair and talk
There
like
you
a
go.
D&D character.
We'll have to do a pod trip to a Ren Fair one of these
Absolutely. I
days.
love a Ren Fair.
I've never been to a Ren Fair, believe it or not.
What?
They're
Yeah.
fun.
That's fucking crazy, Rich. You know
I
that,
know.
right?
I know it is.
Like, we live an hour away from one of the bigger ones on the East Coast.
Yeah, I know. I just haven't gone.
All right. We're gonna fucking fix that. So after he downs his mead, he makes an announcement to the entire tavern. Where, by the way, since he's gotten onto this island, nobody has been nice to him. Not a single person. And so he drinks an entire cup of mead, and he's like, "All right, everybody, I'm a cop, and I'm here looking for people who did crimes. Everybody, look at this picture. Did you do a crime? Did you do a crime?" And in my notes, I just wrote the fallout. No one liked this. That is exactly the response he gets.
Yeah.
And then to make matters even worse, like a bee lands on the bar and he slams his stein down on top of it. And the tavern keeper is like, "Now, why would you do a thing like that?" And he's like, "I'm sorry, I'm allergic." Which, by the way, have either of you, this occurred to me while I was watching this, have either of you killed a bee?
No, I don't fuck with bees.
I try my level best not to. I can't say I haven't been the proximate cause of a bee's death, but I've never done it on purpose.
No, but I mean, like, as far as your like knee-jerk reaction to a bee, mine is just to I've never tried to fight one.
Yeah, you shouldn't.
You know what I mean?
No,
Yeah.
you'll lose that fight. Because if you miss the first one, there's no second
That's
one. It's
it.
just
That's
gonna
right.
catch
It's
ya.
100% my lack of confidence in myself to strike the killing blow in one shot. That's why I don't fuck with bees.
So I've got a possible explanation for why there's a glass bottom on some tankards. The legend is that the glass bottom tankard was developed as a way of refusing the king's shilling, i.e., conscription into the British Army or Navy. The drinker could see the coin in the bottom of the glass and refuse the drink, thereby avoiding conscription.
Wait, they had to give you had to, it was like being served papers, like you had to accept this physical object.
If you drink it, then you are now in the fucking Navy, basically.
I thought conscription you couldn't get out of. I thought that was the whole point of the practice.
I guess maybe they were nicer about it then, but in
So
a
there's like
fucked up way.
different levels of conscription. You can be like conscripted because you did a crime, or you could there's the essentially not like a draft, but like in fucking the movie Barry Lyndon when they're like, "I'll give you 20 shillings if you join the fucking Navy," and he joins the fucking Navy because he needed 20 shillings, and he spends the next hour of that 3-hour movie trying to get out of the fucking military.
Oh, real quick. If you listen to these ads, you're conscripted. Welcome back, everyone, to
Hope you enjoy
the
Vietnam.
Nick Cage Fight Podcast Army. Thank you for reporting for duty.
Where do we send them first?
An abandoned amusement park or Chuck E. Cheese, I'm assuming, based on our watch list for this month. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
An island to punch women in the face. We'll take over a random island run by an absurd matriarchy. That could be fun. And on theme, I guess. So, Willow slips Edward a note before leaving. The note says she's being watched and sets up a secret rendezvous with him. She also cautions him to believe nothing that anybody tells him here, which is good advice that he doesn't take to heart too much. So Edward goes to meet with her. The conversation doesn't really reveal much. Most of his conversations in this movie are infuriating. The entire first 3/4 of this film are frustrating conversations that Edward is just the nicest guy about, in my opinion.
It feels like if you've ever had a series of conversations a little too medicated.
Well, like from Edward's perspective, it's being the like non-medicated
person.
in those.
Yeah.
Or like if you've ever had like a 3-year-old really interested in telling you about something. You're like,
I
oh
don't know.
yeah,
I didn't
no.
get a like 30 and thens.
Yeah, but
That's
like
the 3-year-old move.
yeah, yeah.
And then.
But like he asks legitimate questions and they're just like, you don't understand because of this, that, or the other. And like he just ignores that, his interrogatory was completely, bypassed. In his conversations with Willow, it's mostly because he's horny. But it's for every other character he interacts with, it's just because he's trying to be polite and it's not working super well. So yeah, she doesn't explain why she left him mysteriously. They were engaged originally. And he fucking lets that go way easier than I would think. She's convinced that somebody took her daughter, and that the people here will lie to him. Some bells start ringing and she's like, I gotta go, I'll talk to you again when it's safe. So Edward goes back to his room and he's going through his stuff. He has EpiPens that are labeled like B Epi, I
They
think.
they are labeled BFE. I did notice that.
Just so they really hammer home this dude is allergic to bees. I hope that doesn't come into play in some significant way for him. That would really
Even though
suck.
we've already gotten a bunch
Uh,
of bee imagery in the tavern.
Yeah.
yeah, and it's
Uh,
mead. It's clearly honey has something to do with this.
Fucking literally every little bit of like production detail in this is throw a honeycomb on it.
oh yeah, yeah. They really commit to that.
And I do love too that Ryan, you weren't here for this, but when Josh and I watched the Community episode where Abed did the Nick Cage good or bad,
Oh
he was
yeah.
very clearly watching the Wicker Man. Like you
Oh
just hear the
yeah.
background noises of you just hear Nick Cage going ooh ah ah.
so so maybe my favorite characters in the whole bit, the whole film, because they don't do anything significant and they avoid getting punched, which is amazing to me personally, is the weird twins that speak in tandem.
Oh my god.
There are
I
these
love a weird twins that speak in tandem.
there's these two old lady twins that say everything in perfect tandem. And they
It's
show
one of my favorite tropes. I love
they,
it so much.
they show up to the tavern downstairs, and like Edward is listening from the top and they're talking about, they mention the Wicker Man and they mention the festival of death and rebirth or something like that, something mildly sinister, and he runs into a character who I'm sure has a name. I referred to her as Tavern Helper Girl, and in fact I know she's played by an actress who's been in other things. I just couldn't find her on the IMDb, but he sees her, and her character introduction is hilarious here because she walks around a corner and takes an absurdly large bite of an apple while like carrying like a laundry basket or some shit, and he's like, did anybody go through my bags? I'm missing a book I brought with me. And she was like, huh? And he's like, it's called Everything is Okay. And she's like, that's nice.
Yeah.
It's just the disjointed dialogue in this movie is one of the funniest things to me.
It's perfect. I loved it. I loved the whole thing.
Yeah. Like I know what they were going for in that scene where it's like she's supposed to take it as like he's saying everything is okay, as opposed to telling her a title of a book that's missing from his stuff, and she responds to the former, but it just seems like a glitch in a video game. It's perfect.
It just sounds like I took an arrow to the knee.
Yeah, it's amazing. That evening he wakes in the middle of the night to some sort of sound or something, and like looks out the window of his room and thinks he sees a young girl running off into the woods, so he follows with a flashlight. He ends up at an old barn type building, but after one or two false starts there doesn't appear to be a kid in there. There's a brief moment of tension where he falls through the floor of the loft and it looks like he might plummet to the ground, but he manages to climb back up. So he goes back and he goes to bed, which is fun. I mean, what else are you gonna do? But it's still very funny, given what drew him out of his room in the first place. So the next morning, he's sitting at a table in the tavern eating breakfast, and he has an empty one of those plastic bears that you get honey in from
Yeah.
like the grocery store.
Yeah.
And it's completely empty, and he sees like the tavern helper girl from the night before, and
Hey,
he's
let
like,
me pick your brain on this real quick. The honey bear, the worst vessel for honey, right? It always ends up sticky, even like if I get a standard plastic jar with honey in it, it's not sticky usually. But the honey bear always ends up sticky.
Yeah, but it's
So
so cute though.
yeah, so here's the thing. The honey bear does always end up sticky. But I will counter with, I don't think there's really a good vessel for honey
No,
in general.
glass jar and a good scoop of a teaspoon. That's the only good vessel for honey.
Okay, so you're not even going with what are the honey wands called?
Oh, those things suck shit. Fucking. I think it might just be a honey wand. I'll find out though.
Okay, like the honey nut Cheerios B. It's his weapon of choice.
Honey dipper.
It's called a honey
Called a
dipper.
honey dipper.
That's a terrible.
It's called a honey dipper, honey wand, honey stick, honey spoon, or honey drizzler. Alternatively,
Okay. But yeah, but like a honey wants to drizz. It wants to drizz all over the place. I don't know what vessel you could put it in to prevent the drizz. The drizz is strong.
well, that's what I'm saying. It's not because the vessel when you squeeze it, like a standard jar that's not bear shaped for some reason, I don't get honey all the fuck over that. But a bear, the bear wants the honey.
I feel all right. I'm gonna have to get you some honey vessels. Just like off the shelf.
I always buy the glass bottle fucking jars of honey because I don't want a honey covered bear.
Well, I want to get you a non-bear shaped plastic receptacle and see if you still think
I've tried those. They work better than the bear.
Yeah, I don't know. You might be onto something here. The something about the shape of a bear just attracts
honey and picnic baskets.
just like Winnie the Pooh, man. So we do get a funny bit here where he's like, don't you, isn't your guy's whole thing fucking honey? And she's like, oh no, the crop was ruined. And he was like, what? She's like, yeah, we don't have any honey. And he's like, you don't have any honey. She's like, not a drop. It's just the weirdest response. But she's like, oh, I think I could get you some sugar though. And he's like, fine. But also this does raise an inconsequential but interesting thing. Are we thinking Edward Malice, motorcycle cop, is a tea drinker as opposed to a coffee drinker?
It's possible,
That's
I guess.
so fucking weird, but yeah, maybe.
It's weird, right? And
that would be really fucking weird.
It would be weird. So here's the possibility, right? It's a possibility that he is a coffee drinker, but on the island,
all they have is tea.
They're doing tea. But if that's the case, and he's just drinking tea because there is no coffee, why is he so fucking hung up on the honey?
On the honey, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Also, like, where would they be getting the tea from? I mean, the import, yeah, but like, what would their standard tea be? Do you think they're Earl Grey people or
probably?
I mean, it's the American Northwest.
So, like, you're thinking like an English breakfast or like like maybe a red raspberry herbal.
It's gonna be whatever Starbucks
constant
has.
comment, chamomile,
chamomile, maybe. Yeah, I honestly I don't know. The only kind of tea I like is chai teas or just straight black tea.
That's funny as hell because I think chai tea tastes chai tea being a fucking redundancy because chai just means tea.
But yeah,
it's just chai tastes like socks to me for some reason, but I am
really
a complete mark for every other type of tea. Yeah.
That's so funny because like chai tea to me is just regular tea, but with spices that actually make it taste like something other than plant water.
That's
it. I mean, that's all it is. It's like fucking cardamom and allspice and shit like that thrown in with.
It's your standard warming spices.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the shit out of that. Personally.
I don't know. I think it might have to do with like the quality of the black tea they use to make chai. It's just something about it tastes like wet socks.
It's a possibility. At a wedding shower, we got like a big mortar and pestle, and ever since I got it, I was like, I'm gonna make my own like chai spice blend for black tea and just get black tea bags. I have not done it yet, but now that I got that mortar and pestle, it's always on the table. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Everybody needs a mortar and pestle. That's like I'm a huge proponent for always have a mortar and pestle in your kitchen.
Dude, the one we got is fucking gigantic. It's
Is it like a
insane.
molcajete?
It looks like it. Honestly, it looks like it's designed specifically for a wizard who makes potions in bulk. It's the
Baby.
biggest fucking thing I've ever
I
seen.
bet you could make a shit ton of pesto in that.
Ooh, probably.
Like the recipe book that came with it was just guacamole. Like, that's it. That was it. That's all they suggested.
That might actually be a molcajete then.
I'll send you. Send
me a picture. I'm curious.
So after Sister Tavern Helper goes to find some sugar for Edward, Edward notices for the first time, despite the fact that he gave a whole I'm a cop speech in this room just last night after drinking a cup of mead, notices for the first time a bunch of black and white photos covering the entirety of one wall of the tavern. And he goes and looks at them for the first time like a good detective and notices that they're all black and white photos of young girls standing in like a ring of flowers with like a flower crown. And the furthest to the right and bottom row picture frame is broken glass and the picture inside is missing. Sister Beach shows up at this point. And by the way, we didn't explicitly describe her previously, but I'll do it now. Sister Beach is clearly the muscle on the island.
Oh, she is a mountain of a woman. She will beat the shit out of Nick Cage.
She'd grab him by the scruff of his neck.
She's Sister Goon. I'm sorry. The movie is explicitly trying to state this in no uncertain terms, but since we're describing it, I need to do it justice. Sister Beach is an Amazonian of a woman.
She's the Joey Sandwich of this movie.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, Sister Beach, when questioned about the photos, says, "Oh, these are photos we take from our harvest festival, which is followed by a fertility festival, but that's too sacred. We don't take pictures of that." And Edward doesn't go, "Okay, I like that." That raises more questions. He's just like, yeah, fine. You don't take pictures of your super sacred fertility festival.
Your fuck fest.
Yeah, but this missing one, like, what's up with that? And she says, "Oh, it was broken last night in the tavern and was unable to be salvaged. It's a shame." And then afterwards, Edward leaves the tavern, and Sister Tavern Helper is chopping wood. And he has a very confusing conversation with her, which in response to one of his questions, she's like, "Are you going home after this?" And he's like, "Yeah, like after I solve this mystery." She's like, "Will you take me with you?" And he's like, "Where is Sister Willow?" And she's like, "Oh, she went to the school. She brought lunch to the school." And he's like, "Okay, I'm leaving." And just walks away.
This is too weird for me.
Yeah. That's just all of his conversation. I swear to God, it's frustrating unless you embrace the experience of this movie, because I would be losing my fucking mind. I wouldn't be able to not comment on the way people were interacting with me, like Edward Malice manages to do in this film. So I think this is probably a pretty good cliffhanger to leave us on. Edward is trying to find Willow to continue his search for this missing girl, and he's directed to the schoolhouse. So we're going to see more of this weird island. We're probably going to have a bunch more incredibly frustrating conversations. And at the very end of it, we will get just a bonkers cameo, or more than one. Who knows? You'll have to tune in next time to find out. While you're waiting for that, you can find us on social media. If you go looking for us, if you're a drunken uncle, obviously Facebook is where you want to go. And when you follow us on Facebook, go ahead, direct message us and say, "Hey, Nick Cage, I love your work." We really enjoy those messages.
They're real fun.
Yeah, those, or you can also let us know that Facebook is shutting down our account in the next 48 hours unless we click this link.
Yeah, no, my honestly, my new favorite, we must have hit some threshold of followers on Facebook, because now where we used to get incredibly old women or incredibly drunken uncles going, Nick Cage, you're awesome. Like, what are you doing next? We've gotten Asian women saying, I bought a defective t-shirt from your store and I've reported you to Facebook. Give me a refund. And I was like, that's funny. We don't sell anything really. And then a bunch of other ones that are like at face.bo.ok saying your account has been found in violation. If you don't click here, we will sue you. So that's been fun. You can also, for the moment, find us on X at cagefight_pod. I've heard rumblings that they're thinking about starting to charge for just basic access to this site.
And we will not be doing
at
it.
which point you will no longer be able to find us on X.
That'll be the moment I actually do a roundup of all of my posts and start a fucking letterbox account.
Yeah, there you go. Like,
yeah, might as well at that point.
We're not followed enough for somebody to give us invites to Blue Sky. So if X goes down, just watch the news. And if you see 3 guys in t-shirts handcuffing themselves to X's Cage headquarters, that's us. Send money to our commissaries for the brief time we're in jail for trespassing. But we do also have a Patreon. Rich has the details on that, because I never know what zany shit he's doing on there.
There's no new zany shit so far, but it's patreon.com/NickCageFight. Give us follow on there. Give us, but you have to give us money to do that. So give us money, and in return, we give you what I call the goods.
For the price of a cup of tea a month, you could be listening to us.
Giving you the goods.
Giving you the goods.
Episodes like 2 weeks in advance that are basically uncut, episodes without ads. Just read the descriptions on how much money you want to give us. Don't give us the $500 tier. That's for Nick Cage only. That's how we know we found him.
Absolutely. We are going to be instituting a $5,000 tier, and that gets you an invitation to our island, where we definitely don't have any nefarious intentions.
There are a lot of bees, though, so if you have a bee allergy, maybe don't come.
Yeah, it's called Bee Island. We weren't really subtle about it. We found an island filled with bees. The price tag was perfect for us.
Yeah, we thought it was like the second island, like there was an A island and a B island, but it just ended up being like,
a bunch of bees. Speaking of, I had a really good idea for a Patreon episode, which is we talk about the Nick Cage characters most likely to have visited Epstein's Island.
Oh my god. Acid Yellow,
Acid Yellow, without a doubt. Absolutely.
Tip top, S tier, S tier.
Save it. Save it.
The dude
for
from
the
Next
Patreon.
Tries to pick up women with magic, so that's a yeah.
Save it for the
he's
Patreon.
He's not cool enough, but he'd want to go.
He would. He'd be on the waiting list.
He would be constantly looking into his next 2 minutes of the future. Am I there yet? No. Damn it. Am I there yet? No.
Just him performing a series of actions that eventually gets him there. That's fucking hilarious. That would have been an 100 times better movie. Sorry, no. I thought your idea for a Patreon episode was we just go to Applebee's for dollar margarita night.
Oh no.
We can also do that. Also, the dude from Knowing, it'd be very funny as if he was using all of those numbers as a way to get onto Epstein's Island.
He's like, this one's 9/11, and the this number
Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah, Hurricane Katrina, and these appear to be a series of longitude and latitude coordinates. And when I pull it up on Google Maps, there's just one weird structure on it that looks like a shrine.
And it's got some spray paint that says Bill Clinton was here.
Shit. Anyway, join us next time for the thrilling conclusion of the Wicker Man. And again, even if you just pop up the episode and fast forward to the last 15 minutes to find out who the fuck has us so excited, it's like just showing up out of nowhere at the end of this film, do it. I highly recommend it. We don't care. It counts as a listen as far as our metrics are concerned. So I hope this eats at you, listener. But more importantly, I do hope that you
Because it's eating
remember...
at me.
Yeah.
I just want to say it. I want to say it so
No,
bad.
don't do it. Don't do it. But no, sincerely thank you for tuning in. And as always, please remember, we appreciate you.